그건 나가다니는 생각한데 이거 영상을 찾으신 거 보면 이시로 생사를 뭐 만들어진 거 하나가 그냥 수준을 만들어낸 거지. 운영도 공동선도 그렇게 하는 것도 싸게
Now it is again that's again the fact that all sentient beings, limitless in number, as vast as space, have to be brought to their state of basic nature of mind, which is called Mahamudra. And for this noble goal, I decide here and now that I really want to proceed along the path of Mahamudra to fully and correctly accomplish this goal. And with this motivation in mind, which is the noble Bodhicitta, which requests that we may listen to him.
Rapport college, then Mother Basin, then Patana, then the issue was a Kazan, then Namsan Bichu, then Tavis, Mother Basin, and Nansa, then College to Namsan Bichu, Tavis and Tansa, then the Bichu to Chumare, Nigayam, Susan Nansa.
Now, yesterday we took a look into what are the outer appearances of this world and this life. All this world that is pervaded by suffering and problems, which is also called samsara, the cycle of suffering. All this is only the projection, the reflective appearance of the nature of mind. So when this, my own basic nature of mind, is reflected outside as the outer world of suffering, this is the cause appearance, the cause appearance, but even the more refined one, which is the world beyond suffering, the appearance of all the positive qualities, the enlightened qualities for the benefit of all sentient beings, they are also just the reflection of the nature of my own mind. So the cause appearance of suffering, world, samsara, and the refined appearance of beyond suffering, both arrive just from this very basic nature of mind.
Sangye Number shape is not true to number shape is not number shape then churu turn to tone. Mention to you about tone again, churu to turn on the day, churu to next.
Number shape So there's a famous quotation from a tantra called the Vajratent. And in this tantra, the verse says, apart from this precious mind, no Buddhas are there, nor sentient beings. So that means that this precious mind, the very basic nature of mind, is the origin of the appearance of the Buddhas as well as the sentient beings. No outside separate entities as the Buddha here and the sentient beings there are to be found different from this precious mind. So apart from the precious mind, no Buddhas are there, nor sentient beings. And the second line says, as something to be recognized as really existent by sense consciousness. Not even the slightest is out there. So normally we have a perception that goes like this, that we have those sense perceiving consciousnesses of the sense faculties, and they all seem to recognize objects out there. Here the sentence says, So as something to be recognized as really existent by our sense consciousnesses, outside there is not even the slightest bit.
대인들다 가장 그네 전함 탐지 쓰지 남들 때 있어야 돼. 자가 다 이바 셈네 셈에 셈지 뭐 어떤 있어야 돼. 셈랑 신경을 때는 봐야 돼.
Now, this also concludes a little add-on that we had from yesterday's teaching, and together with this we have covered one point that you remember we took off the other day by wishing for a experience along the path to be free of error. There was a general wish and a detailed wish where we have to familiarize ourselves too. And in this general, and this had also an introduction saying, the first line, everything that appears is but the manifestation of our own mind. Good. This line was explained further. We came to the end of this explanation saying that everything that appears is but the mind itself.
다 셈랑 신경을 때는 봐야 되는 이도 아무 여바다 매바다 타 이방마다 뒤에 제수양 인바다 매바다 타 이방마 다 담보 유명의 타방마들나 여바마이 저외장마스 매바마이 군대 군지시 남루마이 순주 오면랑 다들 쓰기 중이 똑같죠.
So then, as has been said, the first line in the general wish was everything that appears is just the expression, the manifestation of mind. The second line was this mind is not existing as mind, it is empty of essence. We might wish to understand that a little bit further and clearer, so there are more wishes coming to that. And the first thing that we have to clarify here, rid ourselves of as an error, a misconception, is the idea that mind is either existing or not existing. And the second, what follows after, is to clarify a misunderstanding that believes mind is either this and not this. It's like this and it's not like that. So this misunderstanding comes later. So first of all, the misunderstanding of believing that mind is either there or not there. And the wish accordingly is expressed as follows. It is not existing, it's not there, since not even the victorious ones, the Buddhas, have seen it. And it is not existing, since it is not absent, since it is the very basis for the arisal of the world of suffering, samsara, and the world of beyond suffering, nirvana. Those two not being a contradiction is the path of union, the middle path. May I recognize the actual, genuine reality of the mind without any preconception and extreme ideas.
그에 대한 지단기 상제 남지 때문에 출통제 농시 생산 인수마 생산 인수마의 생산을 주바라 생산 신지 주바 위에 대라 때문에 나온 무효 소리가 나 가르치는 순간에서나 당분이 출통제 동반이 세가잖아 집어서서 지원 지라처럼 지라처럼 된지라의 방법 체도라 제법과 농시 생산이 진시형도 상대의 보호단이 상지에서의 상대도 무슨 지라의 문제 이 지라의 방법 체도 저에게 최종적인 나의 생명이 소마디 우리가 뭔지 말하는 것이 숨기는 거고.
Now, then, it is true that the Buddha has said everything that appears is but mind. So when everything that appears is mind, as the Buddha has said, still it does not imply that necessarily the mind really has its own independent existence. So, in fact, the Buddha, when he said everything is just mind, did this as an introductory explanation. It was not pointing at the true nature directly, but it's kind of indirectly pointing at that. And if we are saying, no, the Buddha didn't mean it literally, he said that everything is mind, but he didn't mean that so literally, then we have to give reasons why we believe that. There are three types of reasons that we need. First of all, we have to say, what did he actually mean? When he said, everything is mind, he meant, so, the mind does not really exist also, truly. But secondly, we have to say, so why didn't he say it straight away? Why did he go the way around? Because there was a risk, if he had said everything is empty, just empty appearance, everything that appears is just empty appearance, many people would have been frightened. And thirdly, we have to say, what's the problem with taking it for true what the Buddha says? The Buddha says everything is mind. What's the problem with that? So the problem is, if we say everything is mind, then mind becomes a solid thing. And then, by being a solid thing, it will be very difficult to explain how, from this solid mind, samsara and nirvana can both arise.
딩이 단지 지금 당구되기 유바마이 너외장 마스크 나가와 뒤에서 가서 원은 소화하는 양은 데베기 남지들 세미나 산다마 주바르에 주바르는 거와 그라인도 때 진도 가와 된도 말이야. 덴바나 요 말이야. 주마나야는 요 말이야. 덴바다 주마스야데 이가디 지진베기 우주의 남도로 로에 따샤고도 통화랑 때나 덴바다 주마스 이가양 따바장면도 통화하고.
So then the first line says it is not there, it is not existing, the mind, since even the victorious ones, the Buddhas, haven't seen it. That clarifies that the mind is not a solid thing, an entity that can be found and identified. In fact, it is not when even the Buddhas haven't seen it. So if something is not really existing, so then it's not truly existing, but then also it's not false. So it's neither true or false. Since it lacks the independent existence, we cannot say that it is false or it is true. All those ideas of false and true are just from our everyday life confused experience within this seeming world. And if something lacks the independent existence, then we cannot apply true or false anymore to that.
대인도 아주 상제기 최탐제전 내로 지다와신도 식세라고. 이거 전담하나 세미나를 정상 요소나. 그래서 제대 가려서나 남도도 뭐라고 하는 대백이 있었지. 남도도 뭐. 대인도 너나 취지 인가 그는 다시다. 저거지 나서 원도나 참아. 체맥이 제 체맥이가 제사를 체맥이 균 방향만 보봐. 그는 미루 다시다 저거 제단 차와 쓰바가 그는 취지 인지. 미루 스스스 라고마도 나도 통화나 신기 유단지 이 저거. 그래서 내가 저거 통화라고 들으세요. 그래서 마시바라 시바스.
So now then the first line saying it is not there, the mind, that since even the Buddhas haven't seen it, talking about the way of seeing of the Buddha. When we say the Buddha or the victorious ones see, then this is the recognition of the nature just as it is. Reality, recognizing reality, which here means recognizing the self-aware, self-clear nature of mind. And this seeing is not a seeing with like a eye that we have, or fleshly eye, where we always have an object to see and a subject that sees. The seeing of the Buddha is free of the four extremes and the 8 types of preconception. The four extremes are the idea that something came into existence just out of itself, or it came into existence by help of something else, or it was produced by itself and other together, or we say it is just accidentally, without cause, happening. The Buddha is free in his way of seeing of those types of ideas, and also free of the 8 types of preconception, which are the idea that something is permanently there or completely gone. The idea that something came into existence, occurred, and then disappeared. The idea that there is a coming and going. And the idea that something is either one, a unit, an entity, or it is a compound thing, made up out of many different things. So, free from all those kind of various ideas and speculations, the Buddha sees the truth directly and not as we see, like an object and subject. So in that sense, when it says the mind is not there, because the Buddhas haven't seen it, it is not there in the sense that we can see the mind as an object. We will never find something we can say, oh, now I have seen the mind, I have seen the mind. It doesn't work like that. That's meant with this sentence.
그래서 나한테도 통화될 테마이나 나한테도 통화될 테마인 다투바인 때문에는 상징기죠 쓰고도 그래봐 그래서 나한테도 뭐될 테마를 대신도 상징이 잡아야 테마인 걸 찍어야 돼 이도 나한테도 뭐는 미술 양다고 인바 통해야지 상징은 미술 양다고 참 어떻게야지 나한테도 뭐 테마입니다 나한테도 왕시 테마입니다 대대 레벨 왕시 테마가 뭐 테마를 상징을 이게 통술만하고 인정 나한테는 남수당 상징이 미술 나한테는 미술인들한테 상징에서 시작하는 스스로 나와요 하지 또 인진당 때문에 시가 처음만 봐 상징이 정말 처음만 되는 때문에 미술은 남수스
Now talking about valid cognition here. If that what we see and perceive was true and existing and real just as we see it, then we would straight away see the truth. And if we already see the truth, then the Buddha has to see it anyway. But now our seeing and the Buddha does not accord. So then our seeing is a misconception. We take for true what actually is not true. And the Buddha has the perfect, direct cognition, the valid cognition of the reality itself. So in that sense, we arrive at 2 different perspectives. We have one perspective, which is our ordinary perspective, that out of a misconception, erroneously takes for true something that really isn't there. But the Buddha has the valid cognition to see the truth directly.
지금 당고래. 저는 지금 이번에 매번 많이 혼리 군지 시서 다오나 샌데기 샌미 정신이 매번에. 그래서나 저희 있으면서 여기 맞으면 다 샌미 매번을 키는 거고 그러시나. 가야 태어나서 남도랑 제가 이렇게 차서 얘도 매번을 위해서나 매번이 맞아. 샌미 당시 샌상시 다원에 내가 차서나 근데 다그랬으면 되는 나중에 주로 통통으로 마다를 쓰면 거래를 넣어서 용도인데 인도 농수 거래 농수 땅이 안 되게 농수 되어 당시 쌤 우습게 다른 내가 차서
Now, then, when we say that mind is not there, because the Buddhas haven't seen it, not there in the sense of not visible as an object for a subject, then immediately in our concepts we fall into the other extreme and say, well, then it is not there. If you say it's not there, then it is completely gone, it's absent. But that is not the case. It couldn't be true, because if mind was totally not there, how can we explain the appearance that happens? The appearance of this world of suffering that we see here and now with all our problems and our pain. and the world, the appearance of the world that is purified, pure appearance that happens to beings that recognize the reality. So for all this appearance, there would be no reason if there was no mind at all. That's why the second line says, mind is not absent, since it's equally the basis for the appearance of the world of suffering as the pure appearance of the world beyond suffering.
대인도 콘데 미순 하나 세마다 제바 콘데 미순 하나 잘 담바담매나요. 그리고 구조도 대상 조건이 있는 거.
세마다 제바
세마다 제바 하나에 콘데지 하나. 콘데지 하나에 잘 담바가 콘데지 하나요. 구조도 콘데지 하나 샤 조건이 있는 거.
No, then what we need is a state of being free of contradiction, in the sense that the appearance of this world of suffering and the appearance of the world of beyond suffering do not independently and ultimately exist. So then this appearance is an empty appearance. There's nothing behind there is a true reality on one side. But also it is true that there's no cause why there's no reason why this appearance should not arise. Unobstructedly, the mere appearance of this impression of the world and beyond, of suffering and beyond suffering arises. At the same time, it is an empty appearance because it is free from being ultimately true. So those two things we have to understand, that they are without inner contradiction.
쫓는데 제가 홀로 타면 나와. 때는 짱다 대와 나다는 바람을 치면서 짱다는 바람을 짱다 대와 나다는 바람을 치면서 손한다 보다. 그나마 때는 용식 당탈을 이시. 근데 또 짓다고 이시 내가 쪼가지고 손을 하나. 그래서 그때 가르는 중에서나 그래서 저희들은 이제 달콩 상호로서나 내가 저를 채면 나고 봐. 나나 저 남도기 우주는 남도기 채면하고 가지고 걔네 노이 유는데 걔네 내가 시행인 줄 내가 시행인 줄 따라 내가 교수나 주원 그랬으면 정말 걔네 대답을 잘 여기 어쩌게 채면하고 가 남도도 노이 유는데가 그는 내가 무슨 좋아하는
당분이 기도하래.
당분이 쫄배 채면 먹어. 쫄배 채면 먹어 받았다. 오만 시간 다시다 쫄배 제대로 채면 먹어 봐. 남도 그거 유일한데 봐서 지가 나와서 유일한 무슨 뜻인지 남도 그거 유일한데. 그리고
장다. So then, when the Buddha, on another occasion, in his third turning of the wheel of the Dharma, has said, well, the reality is the true purity, it's the true self, it's the true joy, it's the true permanence. Or he has said, the reality is the indestructible primordial wisdom, the Vajra wisdom. How can he say that? And he even went further. He said like the reality is not the ordinary purity and not the impurity, it's the true purity. It's not the normal self, it's not the absence of self, it's the true self. It's not the normal thinking everything is joy and happiness, it's not the idea that everything is suffering, it's the true joy. It's not the idea that everything is permanent, it's not the idea that everything is impermanent, it's the true permanence. How can you say that? If the Buddha says something like that about the reality, the true genuine reality, there are three implications, three conditions that he can say that. First of all, this reality that he sees and describes is free of all our normal preconceptions, which are the ideas of the four extremes, as has been mentioned, that we think something happened, we say, okay, how did it happen? It came out of itself. Or it came from something else. Or it came from itself and something else. Or we say, it just happened accidentally, no cause. So we always fall in those four extremes. And the 8 types of preconception, as has been mentioned before. So this reality has to be totally unstained, uncontrived by those funny ideas that we entertain. Secondly, the reality that the Buddha is talking about has to be beyond our intellect. Our intellect and understanding normally always thinks of something to understand and somebody who understands, an object and a subject. So free from that, beyond our normal process of conception, it has to be. And thirdly, the reality that the Buddha is describing has to be unchanging. Unchanging in the 3 phases means in the state of an ordinary being like we are, it has to be that same ultimate reality. And when we go along the path and purify our minds a little bit, still the reality has to be the same. When we reach the end, the final goal of the Buddhahood, still the reality has to be the very same, totally unchanging, so to speak, change-proof reality. This it has to be. So if we have these 3 conditions, then we could be unpolluted by the ordinary ideas, not in the scope of intellect, and thirdly, unchanging in all the phases, then this is the reality the Buddha is talking about when he says it's the true joy, it's the true permanence, it's the true purity, it's the true self, and it's the indestructible Vajra wisdom.
근데 뒤인들 다 대단히 연구소에 떠나 근데 돈이 심하고 어머니들
So when we adopt this type of understanding, as has been expressed now, we can rid ourselves of the extreme of thinking that mind is totally not there. The idea of absence. And this is very important, because this idea of absence and total nothingness is very tricky, it's very dangerous and very difficult to remove. The Buddha himself has said like this, saying that even if you have the wrong idea of the existence of a personal I, and your idea of I and self is as big as the Mount Meru itself, still it's easy to destroy. But the idea of nothingness is not like that. Because if you entertain the idea that you have a personal I, you might be convinced, like when you have this idea in a very big way, like even like the Mount Meru, still it's full of contradictions and easy to show that all this is not true, and you give some logical reasons, the thing collapses, the idea collapses. But if then you are rushing into the other extreme and say there is nothing at all, there is no mind at all, there is no I at all, there is totally nothingness, this idea of nothingness is very difficult to remove, there is no remedy anymore. So the great protector Nagarjuna has said that to abandon all kinds of mental imputations, ideas, the nectar of the emptiness has been given, and if then attachment arises to that emptiness again, even this has to be given up by means of Dharma. So all our various ideas that this world, that we we look at is truly existing, and all those ideas that cause us so many suffering have to be removed. And the method to do this is the understanding of emptiness, that this appearance is just an empty appearance. But if we get attached to that emptiness again as something really existing, then the idea of emptiness later on has to be dropped too.
다 수익순바된 간두 마인 소주 오면은 다 방아 덮어서 근데 얘나한테는 차랑 비슷한 민들도 다 외바다 내가 이거 시죠 그래서는 외바 마이나 매바 이모도 매바 마이나 외바로 대인도 지직라 유민 인간도 너무 신이 많아 일단 대인도 제가 따와는 간두를 참 간두를 따와를 도서나 대양만 마소기 외바가 매바가 하마도 매바가 외바로 뭐 외바가는 매바로 뭐
Now we have covered the second line, which says the mind is not absent, since it is equally the cause for samsara as well as nirvana. And we arrive at the third line saying, this being no contradiction, but in union, this is the middle path. So, what does that mean? Normally, if we say mind does not exist, immediately we think, okay, then it exists. And if we say it exists, then we think, then it does not exist. And then both together, existing and not existing, cannot happen. So it's contradiction. But truly speaking, if we follow the logic of those two lines, it is not a contradiction. Because the first line only refuted the idea that the mind is really truly there. It refuted the idea of existence of mind. But it did not establish the idea of absence. The second line refuted the idea of absence of mind, but did not establish the existence. So, those are not a contradiction.
대인도 위로랑 위바다 내바 동바다는 동마 관계 모라네 위바다 내바 동 매동스 주나양 동바에서 주나야가 동바에서 주나야가 요레스라면 메레스라면 한이 가르치 따라야 디기 천천히 이거 그 탐지를 해봐요. 이나양 말아서 남도가 나가 동유매 고라는 데서 이슈 기타가고 있어도라 근데 마시기 매봐 동반이 그가 더 되게 잡아내스 대상송 받아나도 이 송산의 동반이 인바 극산에 동반이 인바는 마시 매바레스네 카드 까산에 다 늦지 추어요 늦지 추어요나 근데 오만 차소도 타니가 다 오만 써야 돼 다 탐지가 다 오만에 가자까 좀 매바시고 와
Now, that means that here in this verse, we're talking about the true nature of mind. The true nature of mind cannot be described by saying it's there, existing, or it's absent. Nor can we say the mind is empty or not empty. The true reality just cannot be caught by any of those ideas. But still, habitually, our process of understanding is always bound to the idea of duality, of that thinking there is an outer perceived object and inner perceiving mind. So we take things for true. That's a very stubborn habit. And only to remove this stubborn misconception, the emptiness was taught to rid ourselves from this error. So the explanation of emptiness is a remedy against our stubborn belief in the true existence. So once now the remedy did its job and we cleared up this error, we are free of the idea of believing of this is truly existing, then we do not need this remedy anymore. There's no reason then instead of believing in the true existence of this world, to believe in emptiness. No reason at all. Because then it would not be a middle path anymore. If we rush into the other extreme, it's not a middle path. The true middle path, the true genuine reality has to be free of all kinds of ideas. It has to be totally free of any idea and preconception about this world.
Tendo ganduman suju umena wa suju juba. Kene tanda bala sengaji juba yo mare sengaji juba mena yang tene nang tandu konde no ha so sha shu. Konde ga no ha so sha shin du yang wo zhubu ni zo wo dong ba ba. Ta di ka dong ma de xie sheng wo dong ba de den de sha den de yin ba de dong yi ba. Wo di ji de ne na suju umena. Tene di ta ga su yi su ni dong ba shu ta tang de dan cha wa. Zimba tamche dan chawa. Zimba dan tatake dan chawa ne yi ne kuma chenpo ni. Kuma chenpo se ga chade chenpo.
So well then, this is not a contradiction. It says not a contradiction, it's the path of union, the middle path. And no contradiction is to say that without the appearance, whatever arises being truly existing, it still can happen as a mere appearance. Because it is not truly existing, it can happen as a mere appearance. And on the other side, by the mere appearance happening, still there's no reason to say it has to be truly existing. It can be very well happen as a mere appearance, but it has not to be a truly existing appearance. This is exactly the same as Rinpoche pointed out the other day, saying by the fact that everything is just an empty appearance, this empty appearance can happen in an interdependent way that can all appear clearly, precisely. And because everything appears as an interdependent way, it is not independent, not existing as itself, so it is empty. And this is the path of the middle. This is the middle path that avoids all extremes, and it is also the great middle path. In saying the great middle path is the same as Mahamudra. So that's why the last line of the verse then says, may I realize this genuine reality of mind free of all kinds of extremes, preconceptions. Rinpoche says that we have reached here a very essential point. It's a profound, difficult point, carrying a great implication for Sutrayana as well as Tantrayana. It is not possible that we can practice Vajrayana without getting this point successfully. Especially in the Anuttara Yoga Tantra, in the two phases of the meditation where we give rise to the visualization of the deities, and later in the completion phase, the dissolve those deities, we cannot do without this understanding. So in short, this point here is so important that in the middle path, the Sutrayana, as well as the Tantrayana, as well as in Mahamudra, it is indispensable.
Oh ja, das
war's. That's it.